So this week happens to be Gamescom week. Gamescom, of course, happening in Germany right now, and it's usually a pretty exciting time. Gamescom isn't necessarily known for like the biggest announcements and reveals and new games and stuff like that, but it is a convention and an event in the industry where a lot of things do still go down, and all of the big media sites are covering it. Sometimes we do get a couple of neat surprises. It's a fairly big deal. One of the biggest things happening at this year's show, of course, is the Xbox One X. That's the big new hot thing that is being promoted and discussed quite a bit by Microsoft, and that we know is going to be launching in just a couple of months' time. So it's been interesting to see some of the Xbox One X details and information trickle out, mostly revolving around like this Scorpio launch package bundle thing that they have for it, which is fine, I guess. But what's really weird and pretty cool that I did not expect at all to be able to talk about was some announcements. I think only one of these games was actually announced through Gamescom, but regardless, this all did happen today while Gamescom is happening. Two surprising and unique third-party games announced to be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Obviously a pretty big deal. I swear, no matter how much I try to get away from the third-party Switch games conversation, I just can't seem to do it. Something always ropes me back into it. There's all these new announcements or reveals and good news or bad news that happens and makes it so it's something I just really want to talk about. And you guys do seem very interested in the topic anyway, so to be fair, I do think it's something that a lot of us Nintendo fans and Switch owners do care about. And this is one of those things that's actually good news. So two games, like I said, were announced to be coming to the Switch, multi-platform third-party games. Like, wow, we're finally starting to see some small-tier games trickle over to the Switch. So the two games in question are Effect Reinvented and Fe. So two very different games from two very different studios, and I thought it would be fun to discuss a little bit what's going on with these and why it's pretty interesting that they were announced. So we'll start with Effect first. Effect is a game, it's a series I should say, PlayStation 1 era that I never personally played. I was definitely curious about the games when they were launching and releasing back then, and like the, I don't know, I want to say early 2000s. I think the first game was like 2000, maybe 99, but I'm pretty sure it was 2000. And Effect Reinvented is a remaster of that first game. Now, through this announcement, I learned something that I didn't know. Apparently, there is a new Effect game being made by the team right now called Effect Sedna. That was news to me, but I think it's pretty cool, all things considered. What I know about the first two games, and you know, this first game, which is being remastered as the Reinvented title, is it's pretty mature, especially for the era that it was coming out in. Again, like turn of the millennium, late 90s, 2000 era. Not a lot of subject matter you typically saw in games at the time. Very high with the sexuality, pretty violent as far as I knew. You know, back when M-rated games weren't as common and frequent as they are now. And some people got a little bit more scared about that kind of stuff. You know, it just wasn't something we saw. Especially this sexuality portion. That's something that is increasingly pretty well accepted and known in gaming today. And it's not really shunned, but at that time it was kind of breaking ground as far as getting that kind of stuff into the game. I think one of the neat things about it, I'm not 100% sure about it, but some other fellow YouTubers have discussed this, and I assume it is then true, that I think the game features two lesbian characters that are either a couple or just together, sleeping together, something like that, is what's happening in the game. And I think that that's really great that we live in an era where we can re-release a game like this and no one really bats an eye. One of the other key components to the game that always really had me excited as well is that I believe it sort of evokes the feeling of some of the original Resident Evil titles as far as static cameras, possibly tank controls, I'm not 100% sure. But I think as far as just the general tone and atmosphere and the progression through the game, it apparently is very similar to that kind of game, the original Resident Evil games. And it was those games, those first two games came out in that era of gaming and in that era of Resident Evil. Kind of like what the Parasite Eve games were for the PlayStation 1 as well. It's all kind of part of that same time in early CD-based gaming. Resident Evil, Parasite Eve, Effect, all kind of doing some of the same things. And you guys know me, man, that's my jam. That is my jam. I love those kinds of games. I love me some old school Resident Evil. Bring on the tank controls. I could play tank control games, especially Resident Evil style, for the rest of my life and never get sick of it. They're outdated controls, obviously, but I don't care, man. Like, that's just the stuff that I love. So yeah, I found this to be a fairly big deal when it was announced that it is coming to the Switch. I mean, it's actually right here in the description of their video on the YouTube channel. their announcement trailer that it is coming to all platforms, and the Switch is included right alongside of that. And you know, it's a third-party game, it's a remaster of an older series, it's coming to all platforms, Switch is now included in the wider swath of consoles and PC, and it's a mature game. Like, that's pretty cool, man. It's really nice to see something like this happen. I really hope to learn that it's a quality port, or a quality remaster, I should say. As of right now, I'm definitely interested in it and curious about it for more than likely the Switch. I would like to pick it up for. And, you know, the other question it kind of makes you wonder is, does this mean this new Fear Effect game, Sedna, does that open the doors for that game to possibly release on the Switch? And to me, that's even a bigger deal because it's a new game. Right now, we're seeing quite a bit on the old school remasters as far as games from third parties coming to the Switch. Whether it's Skyrim, whether it's Rayman, whether it's Resident Evil, Revelations 1 and 2, these are the things we're more seeing right now. Heck, even Ultra Street Fighter 2, you know? Like, that's kind of what we're seeing a lot from third-party companies, but obviously the newer games are what we get more excited about, and we're getting a couple of those by the end of the year, which is really cool. If Fear Effect Sedna ended up coming to the Switch the same day and date as the PS4, Xbox One, and PC versions, whenever that game is supposed to launch, probably 2019, I'm guessing, because Reinvented is next year, 2018. That would be really cool. So hopefully this is opening the door for some bigger things to come. A mature third-party multi-platform game on the Switch. It's a pretty big deal. Now, the other game is actually even a bigger deal, I think, in my opinion, personally. And of course, that is the game Fe, that was revealed last year, 2016, at E3, coming from EA, so that's a big deal in and of itself as well. And it's a great-looking game. Obviously, very unique art style, really cool gameplay, kind of 3D platforming kind of stuff going on, very ambient. It looks like a 3D version of, like, Ori and the Blind Forest, which is, like, one of my favorite games. And it looked great when it was announced last year, and, you know, it's hard not to look at that and think that that might not be perfect for a Nintendo audience. And this was a game that, per this trailer, was confirmed at Gamescom just today that it will also be coming to the Nintendo Switch. So this is great news, and the real reason this is great news is because it's a great-looking game that we could also play on our Switch for those of us that want to play it on that platform. The other reason it's a very, very big deal is because it's coming from EA. EA, again, publishing this game, and suddenly out of nowhere, showing that they might believe a little bit more in the Switch than they've been letting on so far. I mean, the big conversation around EA and Nintendo has been that they're trying to tell us they believe in the Switch. They're trying to tell us that they like Nintendo and they want to support it, but they've showed us nothing but trepidation. They're giving us one port, at least until today, we were getting one port, the only EA game, of the new FIFA title built on a custom engine, which is good news. Like, it's not like I super want to crap all over that idea. I mean, I think better decisions with Switch titles should have been made than just FIFA initially, but FIFA is a huge series. It sells very well. They're supposed to be very good games. The Switch version apparently has had a lot of care and love put into it, so we can expect it to be fairly quality. Those are all good things, and EA deserves credit for those things specifically revolving around FIFA. But when we step away from FIFA, it's like, well, okay, that's the only thing you're doing, but we care about so many of the other things that you might be developing or publishing, you know, on the back end, like a new Dead Space game, next Mass Effect games, which we probably won't see new Mass Effect games, unfortunately. Obviously, the big one for me, you've heard me talk about it, Star Wars. Where are the Star Wars games on the Switch? Where are the Star Wars games, period, other than Battlefront? You know, we've all been wondering these things, and it's pretty big deal. So here comes this title, Fe, and EA now, suddenly, who knows how long this has been a plan. Maybe this is a very, very recent decision. Maybe this is something they have known for a while and weren't ready to talk about it until today. We won't probably know the answer to that. But now, all of a sudden, they say, hey, here's this game feed. This will be launching alongside of the other versions for the Nintendo Switch. And I feel like it probably, more than anything, I would be willing to believe this is a little bit more of a recent decision than something they might have known for a long time. That's just me speculating, but I kind of feel like that's the case. And when they first talked about bringing FIFA only and testing the waters with FIFA, which is exactly what they've said they were doing, that was probably sincere at the time, but sometime over the course of the past weeks or maybe a couple of months or what have you, since the Switch has probably launched, they realized, oh wow, this thing is selling really well and people really like it. And software is selling really well on it. Maybe we shouldn't be so coy about releasing something else other than FIFA on the Switch. and it seems as though Fe is their first attempt to do so. And, you know, like I said, it's a great looking game. It's a multi-platform game that we can expect, I think, same day and date as the competition versions, sometime early next year, 2018, probably next 6 or 7 months. And it's a big deal. It's really nice to see that potentially we're seeing EA warm up to the Nintendo audience, warm up to the Switch. And I'll tell you what, if FIFA really does sell very, very well, if the Nintendo Switch gamer runs out and really does pick up and support FIFA on the Switch, which I think will happen. I think a lot of us understand we want to see EA's games, the good EA games, not the crappy ones where they do stupid things, but some of the better EA games show up on the Switch and see support from one of the absolute biggest developers in the entire industry. We've got to buy this game. We have to run out and pick up FIFA. And so I think if that does as well as I think and expect it to, and it really impresses EA, and then Fe comes out and does something similar, if not better, man, we're probably in good shape. I feel like this is a pretty good sign, and I may be wrong, but I feel like this is, I can say this confidently, I think we're seeing a sign that EA, and potentially then other companies might really start to be seeing that, hey man, this console is great. People are loving it. People are buying it. It's only going to continue to go, and games sell on the Switch. Like right now, I feel very proud of my fellow Nintendo gamer because we've been doing a very good job supporting the games releasing on this console, the handful of games we've had released in this first almost 6 months since it launched. And if EA jumps on board, you know, head on, then I feel like we're just going to see the snowball effect of more and more. And as much as I've been critical of the lack of third parties in the first couple of months of the Switch's release, I've said many times, I do eventually believe that we will start to see more and more solid third-party content, and this could be a sign that it's happening even earlier than I expected. I expected to see a couple of things start to trickle by next holiday, but we might actually start getting some announcements. I mean, mark my words, at this point, if this is all feeling like it really does feel to me, maybe by next year's E3 we will have had several, maybe mid-tier multi-platform announcements from third-party developers on the Switch. And I think that that's, honestly, it's hard not to be excited about that. So yeah, I think that's that, man. Pretty cool stuff. Two very interesting and intriguing and very different looking third-party multi-platform games announced both today, coming to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, we didn't know when we would see this, and here we are. We're starting to see a couple of things possibly change. And add this to the stuff 2K has already announced and is bringing. Very, very cool times to be seeing some things, and maybe the fortune's changing for the Switch. So I'm excited for these. I see these as potentially very good signs for the future. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Are you excited for one or both of these? Do you not really care? Do you still hate EA maybe as much as you did before this video? You know, however you feel, discuss it below. Very excited to talk about these two games today. So that's it. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.